So just a little bit about me. I grew up in Placentia. My family moved here when I was 6 years old. But I started working in schools 35 years ago. This is my 36th year. 6 years at Valencia, and then they asked me to go over to Yorba High School shortly after it opened, so I went over there. I got tapped on the shoulder again. They said, hey, we'd like you to become the director of assessment. And after 2 years, they said, hey, we really need someone to be a stable, consistent force at El Dorado. And I said, where do I sign? I got to be the principal for my own son, which is a kind of a weird, cool thing. I'm not sure if you asked him that he would answer that the same way, but for me, it was wonderful. I just want you to know one other thing about me is, politically speaking, I'm an independent. I'm a registered independent. I'm more of an issues person than kind of a diehard loyalist to one party or the other. But I will tell you that our current board and district leadership is being run by extremists who really don't believe they have the best interest of our district and our community at heart. I don't say it on a whim. I left on not great terms last year, but I landed really well, so I'm in a good place. I'm at Dorado High School, I'm the principal, and so for me, that's just been a blessing. So what we're seeing in our district is not normal. It's not normal for any school district, but it's really not normal for us. Again, this is based on the previous 17 years where we had various different board members. I couldn't tell you what any of their political parties was. I mean, Carol Downey literally was on the board for, I think, 3 terms, and she lives 3 doors down from my mom, and I couldn't tell you what political party she is. It's really supposed to be an apolitical position. As far as the first thing this board did, or one of the first things they did, was they hired Dr. Cherniss as the superintendent. And I'm not going to say much about him. I don't have anything nice to say. I mean, if I said something wrong or mean, my mom would be mad at me. You know, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. I'll just say Google his name and see what you come up with. You can count the lawsuits he's had in other districts for yourself. You don't need me to do that for you. But please, take your time and do a little research. You'll see vanity projects that were never completed. You'll see harassment issues that are still going through the court system. And one was just resolved by another district for a fairly large sum of money. And I really feel like that's where our district is headed right now. And who's going to pay for all that?
We
are. I live in the city too. I live in Placentia. I will vote for Tricia. As soon as I get my ballot next week, I will vote for Tricia, I promise. But we're going to pay for that. That's what's going to hurt, the bottom line. But the superintendent has donated to board members. That was just made public this week. And again, I've been in this district, I've lived in this community for over 50 years, and I've never heard of anything like that happening before. So, just to point out, 80% of the school district budget, roughly, goes to people. It goes to the employees, from the top all the way to the bottom. Whatever their role is, that's where we spend our money. In the last year, we've lost 4 assistant superintendents. That's all of them, by the way. We've lost 10 principals. If you're just talking about high school, grades 9 through 12, we've lost 5 out of the 6 have all left. And for different reasons. I didn't have to leave. They said I could have a job doing something. They didn't say what, and they told me they'd let me know June 30th. If you want to see, I brought the letter that I got that says I will be reassigned or released, and they would let me know June 30th. That's how you treat somebody who's worked for you for 18 years? Yeah, if you don't want people to come back, that's exactly how you treat them. And that's what they're getting. So they've lost 10 principals in the last year, and as I said, 5 of 6 high school principals, 6 APs have left, 2 athletic directors have left their positions, the director of maintenance operations as well. Why? This is a huge turnover. And there were others who were threatened. I know an AP who literally, she was given a letter from the assistant superintendent, I think he may have been deputy superintendent by then, Dr. Gates, on a Thursday. And the letter said, you're being released. She was fairly new to the district. And then Friday, she gets a text from the superintendent, can you come by and see me? I mean, this is like earth-shattering news. This is a 20-year-old veteran teacher and administrator who's come to us from another district. Her kids go to school in the district. And she's getting this letter on Thursday. And she's telling her kids, she's telling her husband, she's telling her parents. And then the next day she gets a text to go into the superintendent's office. And guess what? He never talked to her before. He didn't know who she was. But he had her fired the day before, essentially. And after interviewing her for half an hour, he decided, we might have a job for you. You just hang on, we'll see. Again, is that how you treat people when 80% of your money is tied up in people? I don't think so. I don't want to work in a place that treats people like that. To take somebody and dump their life in a trash can, and then the next day say, well, maybe we can we'll find a spot for you, so hang on. That's just not a great way to build morale and keep people happy at work. We don't do this for the money, trust me. And for the most part, and I like the guy that replaced me. I don't know all the people who were hired to replace all the administrators. Some of them came from outside the district, but David Okamoto's a nice guy. I don't have a problem with him. But does he have the experience I had? No. He worked at he's a middle school assistant principal for I think 2 years and a high school assistant principal for 3 years. That's his administrative experience in our district. The people at Esperanza, if you put all their experience in PYL, the whole administration team, principal, 2 assistant principals, and athletic director, if you put all of them together into a bowl and you add up all of their experience in this district as administrators, it totals 1 year. So why does he want all these people with no experience working for him? I'll let you come to your own conclusions, because I honestly don't know. I mean, I have some feelings and some thoughts, but again, I've got my mother in town, and she'll tell me if I say something out of. To continue on with that, sometime in the middle of last year, one of the schools, it wasn't me, we didn't hire coaches last year, but one of the schools hired a head coach that a board member didn't care for. And so he was hired one day, released within a week, and all of a sudden we had all these new rules about hiring. To be a head coach in our district, they said you needed 3 interviews. The principals who were hired, the high school principals that were hired to replace the people who left last spring, you want to guess how many interviews were held for all of them combined? That many. 0, not 1. The lady who took the job at Esperanza, job closed on Sunday, her job was announced Monday morning. For the guy who replaced me, I sent my letter in at 11 o'clock on a Friday morning after I told the staff. They announced my replacement by 12:30 that afternoon. So are they finding the best and the brightest people? I don't know, maybe. Like I said, they're good people. I don't have anything against them, but there's not a process there. And they keep talking about this thing, parental rights. When I was interviewing at Brea, guess what? There were parents on the panel that interviewed me. That's parental rights. What they're telling you is parental rights is a lie. So they've really created a negative and a hostile culture between the board and the superintendent. Again, the letter that I was given that said I was being released or reassigned, it contained a lie right in it. And I got Carrie Buck to go on camera in a board meeting and say, this was not true. So why? Again, I don't know. Is it incompetence? I can't honestly answer that. There's been a lot of principal bashing. One of the middle school principals, the lady who started the, Dorado-Yorba, who started the computer science charter, went up to the school board member and talked about how our district was failing, how we were failing kids, how we were failing our students. She had to send a letter of apology the next day. Now, whether she did that because she wanted to or because somebody told her to, I don't know. But that's the kind of divisiveness that is happening in the district. And it's not just principals doing it to other schools, it's the district office doing it to the union, and so on and so on. And I'll tell you this, as an administrator, I don't always agree with what the union does. You have to know that. I'd love to fire 2 more teachers. And I'm here to support them, and I support them all the time, but sometimes if they've been here long enough, they won't take my support. They don't want to listen, they don't want to work with me. So it would be easier just to say, okay, go away, there's the door. But they have tenure, so we have to work with them. But that's not the attitude our district's taking. They're taking a write them up, kick them to a new school site, punish them in any way we can. And they've done that with numerous people. And it's about revenge. It's about how do I get back at really good people who are working hard. Again, no names. This extremist board and their superintendent have really created some momentum over some language in the world today. You've heard of critical race theory, I assume, CRT. So I was a history teacher for almost 20 years. I didn't know what critical race theory was until about 5 years ago. I took graduate level history classes, and I couldn't have identified what critical race theory was. Since then, I've learned a lot. It's nothing we're teaching at the high school, I assure you. And I guarantee you, if somebody says they're teaching it at middle school or elementary, they just don't know what it means. When our board decided to put together a critical race theory policy to ban it from our district, they couldn't decide what it meant. They had to go back to meeting after meeting and talk about, well, what is it really? What are we talking about? And they couldn't define it. This is graduate level history stuff. College graduate level, where somebody getting a doctorate is going to know what this is and talk about this and teach about this. Nobody in a high school. We're trying to get kids to do their homework and show up and maybe wear deodorant. So it wasn't being taught. But what they basically decided was, it's anything we don't want being taught to our kids. And they started throwing in other things. Well, it's social emotional learning too. You're kidding me. Now we're talking about apples and potatoes. They're not even close. But this school board just started looping everything they didn't like into that term and trying to ban it. And that's not good. It's not good for us, it's not good for kids. Why waste time banning things? There's so many things we could be focusing on to be productive. Why are we wasting our time banning things that, I mean, it's ridiculous. Personally, I think it really did is it put the teachers of PYLUSD on high alert. It made them scared. Because they do have to teach about racism. If you're teaching about the US history in junior high or high school, you're teaching about the Civil War. You can't teach about the Civil War without mentioning racism. It's pretty hard. I've not tried it, but I can't imagine it. So how do you do that? Where a kid's not going to go home and say, oh yeah, my teacher taught me about racism today, and then, oh, I'm calling the school board. They're teaching CRT over at El Dorado. No, they're not. I promise you. We had teachers attacked by parent after parent for teaching things that were not allowed to be taught. And they're wrong. The parents need to be educated on what we're supposed to be doing. The other thing that goes hand in hand with this is once this was passed, Cal State Fullerton started deploying their student teachers. They wrote a letter to the district trying to get them to back off of it, and the district refused. PYLUSD gets 0 teachers from Cal State Fullerton. This is literally the biggest teacher education program in all of Orange County, by far. Every year, as a school site, we get like 3 student teachers from Cal State Fullerton and 1 or 2 from some random other place. This is the best way that we have to find good teachers. Is by student teaching is basically an interview, where you're going to be here through Cal State Fullerton for a year, teaching, working with our staff, getting to know our school, and we will have like a really good opinion of the quality of a teacher you are based on that 1-year interview. It's much better than a 20 or 30-minute interview in a conference room, or even a 10-minute practice like demo lesson that some schools would have a teacher do before hiring them. The other thing I alluded to already is parental rights. This is another one of these extremist non-issues that they're trying to bring up. Again, if you really want parents to have rights, include them in decisions. That's not what our board is about. That's not it at all. I asked a simple question. As a parent, what right do you have now that you didn't have before this parental notification thing was passed? And the answer is none. And Richard McElinden, one of these assistant superintendents who is no longer in PYLUSD, said that from the dais. Could be why he's not here anymore. I don't know. That's just a guess. All right? He said, one of the school board members asked him, Richard, how is this better than what we're already doing? It's not. It's very similar to what we're already doing. But it's all about clicks. It's like, how do we get attention for our extremist viewpoints? It didn't help one kid. It was really ironic. I was there that night. I don't go to all the school board meetings, but I was there that night, and 2 of the board members said, well, has legal counsel vetted this? Oh no, we don't need them to. We need to vote on it. I was a director for 2 years at the district office, director of assessment. I had to go to every school board meeting for 2 years. So I can tell you, in all my time, especially in those 2 years, not once did a new board policy get voted on without being reviewed one session and then coming back a month later and then voting on it. Because they always wanted to have time to think about it, to reflect, to get input from the community. That's what parental involvement sounds like, not what they're doing. Even the student board member, there's a student board rep, I think he was from Dorado High School, I wouldn't swear to that, but he even said, all this is going to do is discourage kids who are struggling from going to talk to their counselor. That's all it's going to do. Wow, it's pretty impressive. A 17-year-old kid came up with that, and the 3 board members and the district cabinet who proposed this, whoever that was, couldn't come to that same conclusion. The last thing I want to talk about really is the financial issues. I assume you've heard of the Universal Sports Institute. I see this gentleman has the flyer. I think that's the flyer for it in his hand, or the flyer against it, I guess. Again, this is a solution to a problem that we didn't have. You know, we have competitive sports in our district. El Dorado went to the CIF finals in football last year. No, we're not producing Division I college athletes too often. I have to say too often because Ms. Quintero has a son who's a Division I college athlete. So I don't want to exclude her, obviously. But first off, even though these kids are at Parkview, there's still a cost to educate them. They still have a principal, they still have teachers, they still come to school occasionally, so there's still a cost. It's not a huge cost, but it's still a cost. We don't know because the board won't share a budget with us. The district won't share a budget with us. I shouldn't say the board, the district won't. Because there's 2 board members asking over and over and over, we'd like to see a budget for this. And the superintendent says, we don't have that for you. You're going to spend all this money and you don't have a budget for it? Well, roughly, our guesstimate is they're spending $6,000 to $10,000 more per student than what they're getting to educate them. So every student, and there's about, and again, we don't know that either because they don't want to share that. Last I heard, the rough estimate was 92. That was what was shared by the district at some meeting. I don't know. They keep saying it's going to grow, but we'll see. So if you just do the math, you know, that's 92 students times $6,000 at least. That's what we're losing on USI. And not to mention, they put this out to bid. A company called the Training Lab is the one who basically wrote the proposal. And what a surprise, they got the bid. They weren't even a legally licensed business in the state of California or the city of Placentia. And because they were arrears in their taxes, I believe. And then all of a sudden they started getting money from the district and now they can pay their back taxes. Wow, that sounds perfectly legitimate, right? That's not where my money as a tax-paying citizen of PYLUSD should be going. And yeah, there's other schools, other districts are doing this, but you know what? Those kids pay. They pay a couple $100s a month to be a member of this. Our kids get it for free. Well, that's great. That's really great. But I think there's bigger needs in our district than USI. And I'll just say this, the whole USI concept from the beginning has had a huge focus, and no offense, Ms. Quintero, a huge focus on the sport of wrestling. I think initially, like, they had 4 board members for this USI, or advisory panel, whatever they call it, were wrestling coaches. Anybody guess what the superintendent's favorite sport, or his son's favorite sport is? Anybody? Starts with a W. Yeah, so he basically rented out the Valencia wrestling room to his friend to start a wrestling program at a very, very reasonable cost. It wasn't quite free, but you let me know where else you can get a wrestling room for $15 an hour. Practically free.
Hundreds a month to go.
So there's a lot of shady things going on. No official budget was shared, one bid. And the thing that I found the most hurtful when I was still the principal at El Dorado at the time is he's pulling my staff members over to this USI program. We lost 4 periods of PE so that these great coaches could go over, instead of working with our kids, could work with these 92 kids. I've got a lot more kids, or El Dorado has a lot more kids than 92 who need PE. So how they solve that, I don't know. And then the Orange County School for Computer Science. It used to be Dorado Yorba, it's now a computer science charter school. I'll just say this. I was not at Valencia at the time, but about 20 years ago, Valencia opened a program called ValTech. Anybody heard of this? It's one of the best technology magnets in the county. All right? They have coding, cybersecurity, video, robotics. In fact, the first thing Jim Bell told me when I got the job as assistant principal is, I heard El Dorado's starting a video program, and we need to start one too. That's your job. I had taught video at Walnut the last few years there. So I was like, okay, we can do that. We need a little bit of money, but we'll figure it out. So Valencia has an amazing technology magnet program. I highly recommend it. Look into it for your kids if you're not familiar with it. They did it as a part of the school with almost zero extra money from the district. And yet we're spending $1 million on an innovation lab for what used to be Dorado. And that's just the first year. What's next? I don't know. They've taken away the library and the multi-purpose room, or part of it, for USI. So again, they've harmed the whole school. As far as I'm concerned, not having a library is harming the whole school for 92 kids. I can't stand by and just ignore that. And then I just look at all the other programs, or not programs, things that they've decided, that were just decided in the last year are essential. And I know El Dorado really well, and a lot of the community wanted lights on that turf. And I'm not opposed to it. What I'm opposed to is spending $1 million, while the state of California is cutting budgets, spending $1 million on lights. But he didn't stop there. They needed air conditioning in the old gym. They took a 60-year-old gym and put air conditioning. Same thing in Esperanza. Then they went to Valencia, and I don't know if that project's finished yet, but they took the old gym at Valencia, which is 80 years old, and put air conditioning in that. Now, I don't know what your bill looks like in the summer when you turn on the air conditioning. Who's going to pay for that? It's not just the millions of dollars they've spent to pay for the air conditioning units. Who's going to pay for that for the long term? Is the cost of electricity going down? No. So where that money's coming from, I have no idea. I didn't even finish. We need beach volleyball courts at 2 schools. Do we really? I mean, beach volleyball, again, I love athletics. I was a coach for years. I have no problem with beach volleyball, but do we really need courts at Esperanza and Valencia? I'll just mention briefly, Valencia is the only school in our district without a beach volleyball team, but somehow that made sense. They also slashed the maintenance budget, deferred maintenance. So things that need to get fixed, like, spills in the carpeting, tears to the broken furniture. Now there's less money for that. Leaky roofs. They cut AP sections. I'm hearing from all sorts of parents about, my kid wanted to take 4 or 5 AP classes. They only got 3. They said the others were too full. We heard a lot about people being laid off, and then the official word from the district spokesman, Mrs. Blades, was, oh no teachers were released. Well, I guarantee you, I can go to the Brea Junior High website and show you the teacher who used to teach at Yorba Linda Middle School. Great teacher. I'm glad he landed someplace else, just like me. Wish he'd landed at the high school with me, but I don't get my way all the time. This may be sensitive to say, but activities directors are now teaching 2 extra periods. So they're sending the Valencia activities director to Ruby Drive, not too far, just a quarter mile away, to teach for 2 hours a day. So why? Do we not have enough money for her to do that, to hire an elementary teacher? What's the problem here? I don't know, but that hasn't been shared luckily. Valencia still doesn't have an assistant principal. They've been short an assistant principal since the middle of the summer. I don't know. Could it be that nobody wants to work in our district? El Dorado had a school site opening since last June. Young lady took the job, quit after 1 day. Don't know why, I've never met her. I don't work there anymore, so I stay out of these things, but that's what I'm being told. They hired a director in student services. She lasted 2 days before she quit. So it doesn't sound like a great place. Again, what percentage of our budget are we spending on people every year? 80%. And we're chasing them away in droves. And then another manager, I'm not supposed to say his name, and these are all going to be, not all of them, a lot of these are going to result in lawsuits, I guarantee it. But there's a district manager who's been on leave for 11 months, paid leave. They had a whole investigation. The investigation said he did nothing wrong. But he's still on leave. That's like 8 months ago. talk about old news. And then just the way they're treating the teachers union, APPLE. It's the acronym for the Association of Placentia-Yorba Educators. It's just not right. These are the lifeblood of our schools. They're great people. Are they perfect? No, they're human beings. Some of them make mistakes. So they need APPLE to represent them. We need APPLE to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do as administrators, that we're following the rules that we've agreed to. We need to have that balance, because I'm not perfect as a principal or an AP either. I make mistakes. So I need APPLE to be there and say, hey, Joey Davis, you goofed up. I almost said that word, not that word I didn't want to say. You messed up. So here's what you did, here's where it is in the contract that says you messed up. And then I need to go back and fix that if it's true. Or we need to get maybe somebody else to look into it and decide who's right. Those are the things we have APPLE for, not just to negotiate for raises. That's a part of it, but it's a lot more than that. And so the whole point of all of that is, one, the financial issue, and two, the morale. It's not great to have people being moved over when you know it's because it's just out of vengeance. When a teacher's getting moved from school A to school B because they came to a school board meeting and spoke out against the lie that the superintendent was telling them. It's not right. Yeah, it's in the contract. The superintendent has the power to do that. But if you want good people, and if you want people to stay a while, that's not how you treat them. So I'm going to end, I promise. Where do we go from here? How do we recover? I don't know the answers to this. And I'll just tell you, if the board doesn't change, if we have the same extremist board, 3 members that we have now in December, I think you'll see in June and next summer a whole other flood of people leaving our district. I just think it's inevitable. I mean, I've been here 18 years. They know that this is not a good place to work. But they can't be here tonight or this afternoon. Because if it got out that they were here, they know they would be transferred, or they would get a letter in March saying you're being released. So there's no freedom, there's no integrity. So we need a new board majority, one that supports public education. And that's, in a nutshell, a very big nutshell, why I'm supporting Tricia Quintero.